We need important clarifications there, Shireen. That was the Finance Minister of Assam. Now we are joined on another exclusive. This time we are joined by Mr. Haseeb Drabu, the Jammu and Kashmir's Finance Minister. Mr. Drabu, many thanks for joining us. As we all know, so Jammu and Kashmir is the only state which has not joined the GST yet. But you were supposed to hold an all-party consultation to build consensus on the GST today. Did that meeting happen? Can you give us an update on that, sir?
Yes, we have been trying to build a consensus not just within the political parties but across the civil society as well. Today's meeting was an all-party consultative group meeting, and no consensus emerged within that meeting. So we are at it. We are trying to build a consensus. We hopefully will be able to get into the GST regime over the next few days.
What seems to be the, some of the sticking points, some of the issues, the roadblocks that you can share with us, sir, which is not allowing your government to reach a consensus with the other stakeholders?
Well, you see, you have to understand that J&K is a special state. We have our own constitution. Yeah. We draw powers from Section 5 of the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, whereas all other states draw powers from Article 246 of the Constitution of India. Also, because of Article 370, any amendment made to the Constitution of India cannot be applied, doesn't extend to the state of J&K unless it is consented in the concurrence of the state government. The state government recommends that to the President of India. And there are a number of articles in the Constitution of India which don't extend to the state of J&K. And in the Constitutional Amendment Act 101, there are such cases. So there will be a whole series of additions, deletions, safeguards built in, so that the position of the state in its the autonomous character that it has in the Constitution of India, which is by Article 370, or the legislative powers that we have under Section 5 of the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, do not get compromised in any way. There is a lot of apprehension in the minds of the larger civil society, also some political groups, that these might get compromised when you extend 101 to J&K. So the government has already been discussing this and building safeguards into the amendment, which will apply to J&K. And once that amendment is done, then the SGST Act for the state will be passed, and the GST regime would then apply to J&K.
Fair enough, sir. But just a few days ago, when Finance Minister wrote to your Chief Minister, he had said that because Jammu and Kashmir comes under Article 370, it does give power to the state to give approval without necessarily getting a consent from the Assembly. I can understand the unease, of governments because this provision has only been used sparingly. I think 39, 40 times in the past. But could that be an option that the Jammu and Kashmir government may contemplate going ahead?
You see, we are apart from the constitutional position itself, the state has not been in, has seen a lot of civil strife and so on and so forth. So it's advisable, the government has taken a view, the cabinet has taken a view. There have been discussions on this. We are open to all forms of extension, but I think we need some time to build a consensus within the state, because it's not so much about government. Only the most important thing for us as a consuming state is that we stand to lose if we don't join the GST regime. More importantly, if we don't join the GST regime, there'll be a complete trade isolation. So, traders from the state cannot then import stuff, and businesses can't export stuff. You don't avail of ITC. The consumer doesn't benefit because he gets double taxation. So it's not so much about state government and technicalities only that, but it's also a much larger issue of how GST impacts the entire economic situation in the state.
Indeed, sir. In fact, considering how fragile the social environment in Jammu and Kashmir right now is, and the sort of adverse impact of, for a state like Jammu and Kashmir not to sort of embrace GST like rest of the country, it's going to lead to an increase in prices across. And since you are a consuming state, it's going to hit the people of Jammu and Kashmir at the end of the day. Is there a fear also, sir, within the government that this could further sort of stoke fire, further sort of, increase the angst and the anger of the people in your state?
There are implications. I mean, it's not just a technical issue, as I said. It's also a political issue, and we are facing a very fragile and a very volatile situation. So, at this point of time, we have to look at all these factors for us to take a definitive view. But I don't think that it should be very long before we join the GST regime.
So, as the finance minister, I'm guessing you would have done some internal study in terms of the financial impact of not sort of embracing GST. Could you give us some estimates, some numbers that you are playing with at this point?
Now, honestly, it's not about finances right now. It's very clear that we will stand to gain substantially under a GST regime by virtue of the fact that we are a consuming state. So there are no two ways about it. Also, the fact that if we stay out, even for a small period of time, there are bound to be disruptions in the trade network that have been built over the years. It will cause shortages in the system, so you will have a very disruptive kind of thing here. There is no denying that. I mean, in terms of finances, yes, I mean, we will stand to gain 1,500 to 1,000 crores. But that is not the key factor that is driving the decision making at the state level. What is driving is the implications that it has on the customer, the consumer, the businessman, the trader, and that would, it will be a very disruptive kind of a thing. But as I said, I mean, we hope to be a part of the system sooner than later.
And how soon are you hoping, Mr. Drabu?
Well, honestly, I mean, we were banking on some kind of a consensus today emerging in it, but I don't want to put a timeline to it. But as I said, that it will be sooner than later.
And when are you meeting again, sir? I mean, I'm guessing you would be making all the efforts at your end to build consensus. So when is the next meeting, for instance, scheduled? If you can throw some light on that as well.
I can't honestly tell you, but my own sense is that I think we are pretty much kind of done the more or less the consultative process. So we will now, the government would take a view in the next couple of days.
So the next couple of days, you will take a view one way or the other. In conclusion, sir, you've joined us on our channel on many occasions, taking us through for the past many months the various nuances of the GST. We are just about 24 hours away, sir. Your thoughts on this, sir? I mean, do you foresee any short-term challenges, roadblocks that companies may face, at least in the short run? What's your own view on that, sir?
I have said this on your channel earlier, and I'll repeat it, that you can't sleep in a VAT regime and wake up in a GST regime. There are bound to be disruptions, there are bound to be glitches. I tend to compare this thing as, you have these disruptive technologies which change the sector and change the game changers. I see this as a disruptive policy change, which will eventually lead to a much better equilibrium in the system. So for the next 3-4 months, I'm sure, like in the demonetization case, there was a whole lot of chaos and discomfort. You will see this at various levels, in various states, in various sectors, in various groups. It's a huge reform. I don't think we adequately recognize the kind of changes it will bring, not just to the economy or the taxation system, but also to the social mindset of people, the way it impacts the entire issue on corruption, for instance. There's a huge social implications as well. And of course, then there are operational issues of IT, technology, of how the GST network will work. Do companies have ready ERPs where they are kind of going to go online? But I think already the union government and the finance minister has shifted the returns, given some relaxations, looked at it a little more liberally. So there is going to be pain for some time, but I think over the next 3 to 6 months we should see it settling down. There are bound to be teething problems. It's not a small reform.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, in fact, I mean, already there's a lot of political name calling, unfortunately. Already, we are seeing Congress, DMK, RJD saying that they will be boycotting the ceremony tomorrow. And in fact, the finance minister of West Bengal has taken, has gone a step further. He said that come 1st of July, Inspector Raj will be back in India. Do you agree with that view?
I don't, and I mean, I think it's unfortunate when that this should happen, because he was also the chair of the Empowered Committee, and whatever decisions have been taken so far in the GST Council have been unanimous in some way. It's a consensus board approach that has been led, but I'm sure there is politics in all this, which goes beyond the normal regular single tax regime. But I do hope that the governments, both at the center and the state, see this more constructively as a long-term reform that will change the face of India. Tomorrow is going to be, it will be a historic occasion which compares very much with the Tryst with Destiny, a midnight ceremony. So I think it will be wonderful to be a part of that piece of history.
Well, Haseeb Drabu, always a pleasure, and wish you all the very best as you try and build consensus, and hopefully over the next couple of days we'll hear more from you, and hoping here that Jammu and Kashmir too becomes part of this historic tax regime. Many thanks for joining us. Time for us to slip into a break, but our special GST broadcast continues on the other side. Stay tuned.